Today in the dungeon, we are actually stepping out of the dungeon to turn some wrenches on some guitars. Recently contacted me and asked me to do a video about how to set up a guitar. Of course, there are a zillion different types of guitars and a zillion different factors in there involved. That are going to determine a zillion different techniques and things of that nature. But he did mention specifically as it relates to neck relief. And particularly with Gibsons or that type of guitar. Now I am in the midst of doing another video where we are comparing different string types, and this is the guitar that I'm using. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. This guitar is my my BC Rich Mockingbird Special. I did a video on this one a while back. You can check it out. Scroll down a little bit on my channel. And the reason why we're doing it on this guitar is because it is set up very similarly to a Gibson Les Paul. It does have a 24 3/4 inch scale, the same scale as a Gibson would. Of course, the 4-knob controls, which doesn't have anything to do with what we're going to talk about today. Also the pickup selector switch, also not having anything to do with what we're talking about today. However, what it does have to do with what we're talking about today, is going to be the two-pneumatic bridge and, of course, the truss rod adjustment. So what Holly and I are going to do, and she's helping me out. She's working real hard over here to help me out with this. We are going to change the strings on this thing, and we are going from. Right now there's a set of Dean Markley Blue Steels on here, and we are going to go to put on a set of regular old nickel-plated Super Slinkies. So, a couple of things that I like to have handy whenever I'm working on a guitar, and that is of course your assortment of rags. I like to have 2 rags. This is my microfiber that I use for general polishing, and I also like to keep an old junker rag laying around like this one. That I would use for for lemon oil and things like that, because this thing is going to get pretty dirty over time, and I certainly don't want to be cleaning my guitars with it. Again, for what we are talking about today, you're going to need to have a handy dandy set of Allen wrenches. I actually have 2 sets of these. This one is my metric set, and then of course this is my SAE set for American made guitars and American measurements, American measuring standards, if you will. And again, this is my metric set. Just about every import guitar that out there that uses an Allen wrench is probably going to use these. Now, matter of fact, I've never seen an import guitar that didn't require a metric set. So, so good idea to have a couple of these handy. These, I want to say, I paid about $7, $8, $10 a piece for the entire set. And they've had every size in there that I've ever needed, plus more. A very important tool. This is my Planet Waves string winder and string cutter. It has a string cutter in there, which makes my life much easier. Wire cutters will work. I find this to be a much easier solution. And then of course your handy dandy string winder. I don't often wind with this, but sometimes I do. And I also do use an electric winder, or in this case a battery powered winder, just to make life a little bit simpler. So, and 2 final things that I like to have laying around for obviously for a basic string change are going to be a clip-on tuner, obviously, so that I can make sure that when I put everything back on, it's in tune. And I like to keep a guitar pick handy. Now, what we are going to do is change the strings and double check the truss rod adjustment on here. You know, again, to make sure that the neck's straight and that it is playable. What I'm going to do, the first thing that I like to do before I change strings on a guitar is sight down the neck and make sure that it is straight. And I do see just a very small bow in the neck. As guitars sit over time, you know, the truss rods in there will loosen up a bit, or sometimes, you know, if it's a dual action truss rod, it'll loosen up the other way, and then you get what they call a back bow. This one, you know, this guitar is generally set up pretty well for me. Just looking at it, I don't think I'm going to do much more than a quarter turn on it. However, for a guitar that does need to be straightened out a little bit more, obviously would require more. So with neck relief, you have two general ways that people like their guitar set up. You have people like me. I like my guitar, particularly on this style of guitar and on Gibsons. I like my necks straight as an arrow, because then you know, then I have the action, you know, basically the same action all up and down the neck. Other people prefer to bow their necks just a little bit, you know, and I don't like to do that because I found that it does affect the action in a few different parts of the neck. So all personal preference. You know, different guitar players like their guitar set up different ways. You know, I like the action, or, you know, the action is what we call, you know, is what we refer to when we're talking about the distance from the strings to the fretboard, you know, and how easy it is to push the strings down onto the fretboard. I like the action on my guitars as low as I can possibly get it without going too low, because if it gets too low, then it starts to buzz. The first thing that I'm going to do is loosen all of the strings. Okay, so, you know, now that the reason why you loosen all the strings first is because I'm going to cut them off. And if you cut the strings off at full tension, what that likes to do to the neck is, you know, if you have a neck that's sitting at proper tension while it's strung, and then all of a sudden you instantly take that away, that likes to make the neck want to go and snap back, which obviously is not that's a little hard on it. So then it is a matter of putting on the new strings. Okay, so that's where I always start. I always start by feeding them all there into the bridge section, and then now I'm going to wind them all on. Now, when I wind them on, I'm a guy, I typically like a lot of windings, and I wind them straight on. I don't top wrap or anything like that. I use as many windings really just about as I can without them overlapping, and the reason why I do that is because in my experience, I found that it holds the string onto the post a little bit tighter. You know, it's the same theory as, you know, if you were to wrap a string around the fingers of your hand, you know, even though you're not wrapping any tighter, the more windings that you put on there, you can still feel your fingers getting closer and closer together. So, you know, again, and there's 1,000 different theories of this, and there's going to be a ton of people that disagree with me on this. But, you know, what I found is, you know, by more windings, it holds the string onto the post tighter, and thus maintaining tune a little bit better as well. So I always go, when I feed my strings, I always like to feed it back toward me through the eyelet, you know, and then I give it a good tight bend like that, and then I wind it on, and be careful to maintain that it is continuing to wind on straight. All the windings are going continually underneath each other, nice and straight and clean. And then get it there at about that. And you also want to make sure that it's lined up in the groove. In this case, on the Tune-O-Matic bridge, each one of these bridge saddles will have a groove in it. You want to make sure that it's locked in, not locked in, but it's riding right there in that groove, as well as the grooves on the nut as well. So. Camera one died on me. Anyway, so here's where we are. I went ahead and took the truss rod cover all the way off. Just wasn't going to cooperate with me in this instance, unfortunately. So, but I now have the new strings wound onto the guitar. Again, all of the making sure that all of the strings are running through the grooves in the both the bridge saddles and in the nut. And again, everything is wound on there nice and straight and clean, the way that I talked about before. Next thing we need to do is tune it up. And different tunings will affect, even as much as a half step difference, different tunings will affect the tension that's on the neck. So I am tuning this guitar to E standard. And I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that was, we just had to tune that string up about a whole step, and you can kind of hear the rattle going on just from the string being too loose, from not being up to the correct tuning. And that's something that you should see repeat here at least a few times. Oops. Get it close. Anyway, it doesn't need to be exact at this point because I'm going to stretch them. Now we're restrung, we're stretched out, we're tuned up. Now for the matter at hand. This particular guitar, the truss rod requires an Allen wrench. Most guitars are going to be adjusted with an Allen wrench. There's some older like 50s Fenders and reissues of 50s Fenders that unfortunately you have to take the neck all the way off, and then you would adjust the truss rod from this end with a Phillips screwdriver, or in some cases even a flathead. Most guitars nowadays are going to be adjusted from up here on the headstock, usually with an Allen wrench. Some manufacturers will actually make their own proprietary truss rod tool. Gibson uses their own little truss rod wrench that I believe is a 5/16, basically a 5/16 socket, with a little handle on it. I think Martin Taylor uses something similar, and Martin Acoustics, theirs is an Allen wrench, but theirs is again a special proprietary Allen wrench that has a really long end on it because it's got to go way up inside the neck to be able to reach it. So, you know, but generally speaking, you're going to be looking for, you know, an Allen wrench of some kind. In this case, I think this is the one that I need. I'm just gonna pop it in there and make sure that's the one that fits. And I believe it is. So, right wrench selected. Now, again, I did this earlier, but I'm gonna do it again because now there's a new set of strings on it. And I wanna make sure that I'm still seeing the same thing that I saw before. In which case, in this particular instance, I am. So, now, when you're tightening a truss rod, generally what you want to do, what you want to do is tighten it a quarter turn at a time, and the same rules apply that would apply to your normal tightening and loosening rules as you're looking at it from this orientation. You know, as you're looking down the neck from the headstock. Righty tighty, lefty loosey, and you know, and it's it. You know, when you have a bow in the neck, when you're tightening the truss rod, you will be flattening it out and flattening the neck out, and essentially bringing the strings closer to the fretboard. When you're loosening the truss rod, you'll be going the other direction. So, so in this instance, we are going to go 1/4 turn at a time, righty tighty. And on this one, I think that's all it's going to need. Pop my handy dandy Allen wrench in there. And strings on there often, there's only enough room for about an eighth of a turn or so. Just a little bit. Okay, that was an adjustment, so we're going to recheck our tuning. And now it should be actually just a wee bit on the sharp side. So I'm going to tune this thing back to E standard again. Now, I would not have already gone back and tuned it up again on a guitar that needed a more major adjustment. Again, this one is just a minor tweak. I think is all this thing needed, and that's where we're going to leave it. So, one final test. Feels about right. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play basically every note on the fretboard and listen for any kind of buzzing on the fretboard. There is a little bit of a buzz down there on the down on the lower frets. So what that's telling me is I actually tightened it too far. Okay. Take a little bit out. That is about where I want it. And we reinstall the truss rod cover. And we're done. It's just a matter of, I like to have her nice and cleaned up. And granted, I didn't spend, another thing that I like to do is repolish and condition the fretboard and, a lot of that kind of stuff when I'm changing strings. This particular, it didn't really quite need it all that much this time, but obviously it never hurts to have a good polish cloth laying around. Anyway, so A few other things that can be done to adjust action on a guitar. A lot of people will, you know, before they go there, a lot of people what they will do is, you know, is adjust the saddle, the bridge height. And this is just in the instance of this guitar, or even like on the Epiphones. Gibsons are a little bit different, but on the Epiphones, you know, you can actually just take a flathead screwdriver and adjust the bridge saddles up and down. That will also affect the, you know, the action and the playability. And, you know, sometimes if you got, you know, if you have a slight buzz, if it's particularly up in the higher frets, a minor saddle adjustment will fix that. You know, some people will take it a step further and actually shave off the bottom of the nut and bring the nut a little bit closer to the strings, you know, or a little bit closer to the fretboard. You know, in my opinion, that's generally a last case, last ditch effort. Generally, you shouldn't need to do that, but it is an option. Anyway, hope this helps. You know, hope somebody learned something. You know, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave your comments and questions down below. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. I am working very diligently to get caught up on YouTube videos so we can get some more content out there. You know, as well as you know, more opportunities to talk about shared music. With the holiday season at this point very rapidly approaching. At the time of this recording, Thanksgiving is tomorrow. You know, this is a great opportunity for people to, you know, for musicians especially, go through your old gear and see if there's anything you don't want or that's broken that you'd be willing to give away. You can contact Share the Music via Facebook, and it's a great cause to donate broken or unwanted instruments, because they're going to go to a great cause and go to you know, go to some people that can really use them and get involved in music that might not have an opportunity to do so otherwise, which is why we do this. Anyway, so as I said, you know, I hope this was you know, at least moderately informative. You know, to the viewer that asked me to do this video, I hope this was you know, this was at least somewhat helpful. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help any way that I can. I certainly don't know everything. I'm not the world's greatest guitar tech by any means. I still pay techs to do a lot of my stuff for me. You know, but this is basic stuff that you know, that I have figured out how to do on my own and can save me you know, 50 or 100 bucks a whack. There you have it. Happy Thanksgiving. You know, if you have any other setup tips, please, again, share them down below. I would love to hear them. I love to, you know, there's always somebody out there that knows. In this case, there's gonna be a lot of people out there that know more than I do. One final note: I hope you all get an opportunity to spend some quality time with your family this holiday season. You know, tomorrow, Holly and I, as well as the rest of our family, are planning on spending time with family and watching football and eating a lot of food and getting fat. So, which is what family is all about. And this little girl is going to get to be a part of it. And she may not have always had the opportunity to. She was actually a rescue from the Humane Society. You know, if you get an opportunity to spend some quality time with your families, I hope you do. And if you get an opportunity to do something for somebody else, I certainly hope that you have an opportunity to do that as well. So, happy Thanksgiving.